Greetings, wanderers. I'm Fauna Blakewell, and this new episode of Echoes from the Loam is a tale of foretold death, cursed mirrors, and a hopeless escape. Mirrors are often seen as portals to other realms, gateways to other dimensions where spirits, or worse, can appear. So take my hand and avert your gaze, for it sees all. The rain had followed Zara for miles, relentless and sharp, like something chasing after her rather than falling. By the time she reached the hotel, the sky had turned the colour of autumnal sunset. Ashmeyer House stood hunched at the edge of town, its sign swallowed by thick hanging ivy and flickering like a dying thought. Inside, the lobby smelled of mildew and forgotten paper, wallpaper curled at the corners, revealing layers beneath, patterns that didn't match, as if the walls had been dressed and redressed over time to hide something. And a grandfather clock ticked in the corner, though its hands hadn't moved in years. The man at the desk didn't speak. His eyes were pale, grey, almost translucent. His hair was pitch black and his complexion icy. He slid the brass key across the counter without ceremony. Room 13. No smile, just the key and a silence that felt like a verdict. Zara took it. It felt cool in her palm as she gripped it tight. The hallway stretched long and crooked, lined with portraits whose subjects had long since blurred into shadows. The carpet was worn to the threads, showing the knotted boards underneath, and the light bulbs above buzzed faintly, as if trying to whisper something she couldn't quite hear. Room 13 waited at the very end. The door was far heavier than it should have been, and the key turned with a screech that echoed down the corridor. Inside, the room was simple: bed, desk, lamp, and a large mirror. It stood opposite the bed, tall and ornate, its solid oak frame carved with twisting vines and something that resembled thorns. The glass was dark at the edges, like frostbite slowly creeping inward towards the centre. Zara looked into it, but her reflection didn't look back, not at first. Zara couldn't seem to sleep that night. The room felt too quiet, but not still. The walls creaked in slow intervals, like something was breathing behind them. The lamp flickered and held steady, casting long shadows that didn't seem to match the furniture. She found herself sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the mirror, and it stared back. Her reflection was there, but wrong somehow. The posture matched, the clothes were hers, the tilt of her head, but the eyes were off. Too wide, too dark, and they didn't seem to blink when she did. She stood, and the reflection stood a beat later. She raised her hand, and the reflection followed, delayed like a bad signal. She leaned in closer, and the glass pulsed in expectation. Not visibly, not physically, but something behind it shifted, like a ripple in the water. Her reflection smiled, but Zara hadn't. She stepped back, and the reflection held fast. It leaned forward toward her, pressing its palms against the inside of the glass. The skin was eerily pale, and the veins that wound themselves beneath were black. Then it changed. The mirror showed Zara lying in bed, same clothes, same room, but her throat was slashed open, split wide from ear to ear, and the blood soaked the pillow, spilled onto the sheets and the carpet. Her eyes stared upward, glassy and wet, mouth frozen open mid-scream. Zara blinked hard and the image just vanished. Her reflection returned to normal, breathing, blinking. Zara span and turned away, but the mirror didn't. Zara didn't remember falling asleep, but she woke to silence, and not the soft, peaceful kind. The kind that presses hard against your ears like cotton soaked in water. No birds singing, no wind moving. The mirror appeared to glow, but not with light, but with a presence that thrummed, low and constant like a throat clearing behind her. She turned towards it slowly, as if her body already knew what she'd see. And there she was again, lying in bed, throat open, but this time it moved. She watched herself stir, sit up, rub the sleep from her eyes, and the mirror showed her from above, like a ceiling camera recording her every move. She saw herself reach over for the lamp, knock it over, curse softly to herself, and then freeze as a shadow passed across the room. She, mirror she, turns towards it. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The shadow lunged, and Zara watched herself die. Not quickly, not cleanly. The mirror showed every twisted detail. The way her body contorted, the way her fingers clawed desperately at the sheets, the way her eyes bulged and then dimmed as the light faded from them. Then the mirror rewound, and she died again and again, each time slightly different, a new angle, a different scream. And then it dawned on Zara. There wasn't changing, it was rehearsing, practicing. She stumbled back quickly, heart hammering against her ribs, bile rising up in her throat. The mirror flickered and went dark. Zara's reflection returned to her own, but it looked exhausted. It looked afraid, and it looked like it knew what was coming. At just after dawn the next morning, following another sleeplessly haunting night, Zara found herself wandering the garden, where she came across the housekeeper, pruning dead vines with a blade too sharp for the task. The woman didn't even look up when she approached. "You've seen it," the housekeeper said, not asking a question. Zara nodded, unable to find the words to even explain. The woman sliced through a thistle stem, letting the sap bleed onto her glove. "It doesn't show what's real, it shows what's owed." Owed? Owed how? The housekeeper finally looked up at Zara. Her eyes were pale blue, almost milky, but they held a sharpness that cut deeper. Mirrors have a way of remembering, especially ones that have seen bloodshed. Zara tried to laugh it off, but it just came out thin and unsure. It's just a trick, a hallucination. So it can't be real. The housekeeper shook her head. It's a rehearsal. You're not the first, you know. Been here a long time and I've seen so many. Zara felt the cold settle in her spine. So who was? The woman didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her apron and pulled out a scrap of cloth, faded, torn, and stiff with something dark. She lived here before, Zoe. Saw the same things, heard the same sounds, thought she could outwait it. What happened? The housekeeper placed the cloth in her hand. It was a piece of a nightgown. The initials stitched at the hem were hers. ZG. Not her name, but her initials. But Zara hadn't brought any monogrammed clothes with her. She looked up to speak, to ask, to question, but the housekeeper was gone. It began with the smell. Not rot or mildew, but something much older, almost like wet moss-covered stone and burnt hair. It seeped from the mirror's edges, curling tendrils into the room like a smoke without fire. Zara covered the mirror with a sheet, desperate not to see another performance. And the sheet moved. Like a flutter in a breeze, it completely shifted, like something underneath was breathing. She stepped closer, heart thudding hard, and reached out. The fabric was warm to touch, and quickly she pulled it from the mirror. In its place was a hole. Not a literal one, no broken glass. That the surface had changed. It was no longer reflective. It was deep, like looking into a well at midnight. The edges pulsed faintly and the centre rippled, as if something beneath was stirring. Zara leaned in, drawn to it, and a hand reached out. It didn't grab for her, it didn't lunge, it simply pressed against the inside of the glass, palm first, fingers splayed. The skin was slick, mottled with bruises, and the nails were cracked and yellow, split at the edges. Then another hand, and then a face. But it wasn't hers, it was eyeless. Mouth stitched tightly closed, hair matted. It stared at her with sockets that pulsed like they were trying to remember how to see. Zara couldn't move. The mirror bulged outwards towards her, not glass, not liquid, but something somewhere in between. The face pushed closer, distorting the surface, stretching it like skin. The stitches on its mouth began to split and tear. Zara tried to scream, but no sound came out as the mirror snapped back. Her reflection returned, but it wasn't alone. Behind her, in the glass, the eyeless figure stood, still, waiting. Zara turned, but there was nothing there. She turned back to the mirror, and it was closer this time, waiting, anticipating. Zara stopped looking into the mirror, avoiding it at all costs, but it didn't stop looking into her. Every time she passed it, the glass shimmered with movement, flickers, scenes, deaths. She saw a man she didn't recognize, middle-aged, balding, wearing the hotel's uniform. He was in the laundry room, folding towels. The mirror showed him slipping on spilled water, cracking his head on the tile, blood pooling as the towels just soaked it up. Zara blinked and the image changed. A woman, young, blonde, laughing, holding a wine glass, room service. The mirror showed her choking, not on wine, but on the glass. Her throat shredded, her eyes wide, Her reflection smiling, she screamed. The mirror didn't flinch. It showed a child next, running down the hallway, tripping, falling. The chandelier above him snapped its chain, and the mirror froze the moment before impact. Zara backed away, but the mirror followed. Not physically, but every surface began to reflect it. Her phone screen, bathroom tiles, the puddle outside her window, all of them showed the mirror. All of them showed her death. She smashed the lamp. The mirror flickered. She covered it with a blanket and it pulsed. She tried to leave the room and the door was gone. Not locked, just gone. Just wallpaper. She turned back and the mirror was glowing again. And this time it showed her. Not dying, not screaming, but smiling, holding the stitched mouth of the eyeless figure in her hands, feeding it something. And that's when she saw it, poking out from underneath the drawers, the corner of a book, a journal. The cover peeled like skin, and beneath it pages stitched together with hair, inked in something dark, something that smelled like rust and rot. The entries in the journal were erratic, centuries old maybe, written by guests who had never checked out. Each one described the mirror, its hunger, its mimicry, its lies. One line repeated, "It doesn't show what will happen, it shows what it wants to happen." She read until her fingers bled, until the mirror began whispering. It showed her mother's face, her childhood bedroom, her first kiss, her worst fear. It showed her dying, again and again and again. In pure rage she tried to smash it, and it didn't even crack. She tried to run, and the hallway stretched on and on and on. Doors vanished, lights dimmed. She screamed, and the mirror smiled, and then it stopped. No flicker, no glow, just her reflection, breathing, blinking, smiling. She was outside now, somehow, standing in front of her own house. The mirror was gone, the hotel was gone. She laughed and she cried with relief. She went inside and closed the door behind her, and in the hallway mirror, she saw the hotel room behind her in its reflection. The stitched mouth figure just standing, waiting. If you're listening, don't look at your reflection. Not tonight. Not in the hallway, not in the bathroom, not in your phone screen. Because if your reflection smiles back, it's already seen you. And there the tale ends for now, but the echoes will always remain. If you've enjoyed your stay here in my domain, leave your mark, a review, a whisper, a 5-star sigil. Until next time, wanderers, I've been Fauna Blakewell, and you've been changed forever.